We're back with more Zag Talk. It's been a nice little summer break, but we missed our listeners so much. Got a great episode in the works today. Our guest is Mike Pergadov, co-founder of Wiz, also a sponsor of the episode. Before that, Greg and I are going to talk about some interesting funding news. But first off, I'm joined by Athena Browning, who covers advanced air mobility for Zag. And she's here to talk about her new beat as well, Zag Connected. Hey, Athena.
Hi, Jonah. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to hear about what's new with Zag. What's going on.
Well, there's, a few different beats to talk about today. So as you said, we have just launched our brand new editorial strand, which is called Zag Connected. Essentially, we're looking at this very fast evolving business of connected mobility. What we mean by that is essentially the systems and the tech that transform how people and goods move through cities. So think about autonomous vehicles, agentic AI, smart infrastructure, essentially the kind of connective tissue between vehicles, people, networks.
It's I think a lot of important interrelated topics there, and obviously very timely. Got a lot of robo taxis finally becoming real, taking off. Both in UK cities and across the world. So I can understand why you guys want to hone in on this. What are you seeing? What's
Well, few different trends in the sector. And I think for us, the goal is also to use our insights from other sectors like shared mobility, micromobility, aerospace, which, as you know, is my typical beat, and kind of see how they all come together and what can we find out about this new and emerging kind of connected sector. So to find out more, we went to IAA Mobility in Munich last week. If there's any German speakers here, that stands for Internationale Automobilausstellung. And as the name would imply, if you speak German, it was once a car show, car expo, which has now morphed into a sort of global stage for sustainable mobility and technology and politics. The German Chancellor was there, Google was there, a lot of people were there to talk about what's big in this space of connected mobility now, and how kind of legacy automobile manufacturers and that entire industry can keep up in the modern age.
So obviously it's a big moment for mobility globally, Europe in specific. I think dealing with America, dealing with China, dealing with the push to both EVs and connected vehicles. So what were the key takeaways?
Well, hard to isolate one, I would say, especially at the IAA with so many different panels and speakers there. But I would probably spotlight agentic AI as one of the kind of standout themes of the event. So Google did a pretty well-attended keynote, which was positioning AI agents as the foundation of the next mobility era. They're now exploring putting Gemini in the car, which essentially means you can ask it to make you a playlist. You can ask it for facts as you drive down the road. I did a few test simulators. It's essentially like you've got this companion with you in the car who you can talk to, which I guess is an added bonus if you get lonely when you're driving. But obviously, AI agents are about a little bit more than that as well. So at their core, it's all about systems that can reason and act independently. And that is really shaping vehicle design at the moment. And with so much focus on the passenger experience when it comes to vehicle design as the next frontier of, how the car industry will evolve and keep up with international competition, I think we're going to see more and more of that. And it's obviously not just Google. There's quite a few companies we came across who are exploring putting AI agents in the car and what that actually means.
I'd say, given that cars these days feel like just big computers on wheels, it's no surprise that they're making that computer do a little bit of LLM magic. So any other startups that caught your eye?
Yeah, I think one company that really stood out was called Pix Moving. It's a Chinese company, and their whole idea is about turning travel time into living time. So they have something called a robobus, which is a driverless shuttle, but it can also be used as a study space or a meeting room or a social hub, kind of depending on the needs of the user. They also have something called a robo shop, which we explored, and it's essentially a mobile cafe or like a pop-up clinic that brings services to where people are. So they're currently running pilots basically all over the world. I think they have some in Europe, in Asia, in the US. And the idea is it being a sort of evolving urban platform.
I've followed them lightly for a couple of years. I feel like they're one of those companies that does a great job of making a cool sounding concept, put a rendering out, do a pilot. I think they had a partnership with Robo Mart before. Then let's see it actually, hit production. It's one thing to do a rendering, another thing to actually get those robo shops rolling around in cities. But if they can do it, cool.
Absolutely.
And then back to your classic beat. What's taken off these days? No pun intended.
No pun intended at all, Jonah. Well, I don't know how closely you follow the advanced air mobility space, but there's one company that is kind of a huge talking point at the moment. It's called Lilium. Lilium has particular significance to me because when I started covering advanced air mobility, which was about a year ago, it was the company that everyone was talking about because it was about to go bust. And just as I was trying to figure out what this sector is all about, you've got one of Europe's biggest eVTOL projects collapsing. I think it's safe to say it was considered Europe's most flagship eVTOL project. So it's an air taxi startup out of Germany, and they were building a 6-seater jet, which was set to launch in 2026. Fully electric, passenger carrying electric aircraft. And it attracted a lot of attention in Germany and Europe wide, especially kind of, IAA context again, Germany having this manufacturing prowess to its name. I think it was very important for them to have their own eVTOL project. So Lilium, they employed over 1,000 people, which is pretty insane for a startup, I think. And the company was just absolutely burning through cash. There's a few different estimates, but towards the end, they were going through like 25 million euros a month just to keep the workforce and, their 1,000 people employed. And everything kind of came to a head in 2023, so some time ago, when the German government blocked a loan guarantee, and that triggered Lilium's first insolvency. So this is kind of what I walked into. And ever since then, we've just had a litany of rescue attempts for this company. And there's one quite mysterious figure called Robert Camp, who is behind a lot of these rescue attempts. I have interviewed him before, still a very mysterious figure, to be honest. But he had a consortium back at Christmas time in December that had put a rescue bid in and then pulled out. Now he's come back with a new consortium, allegedly backed by Japanese funders, and they're trying to buy Lilium's IP. But there's now an entire drama with the insolvency administrator, they're called Pluta, who are running this whole Lilium insolvency process. So the insolvency administrator says the consortium has not really proven that they're good for the money to buy Lilium's assets because they haven't put 20 million euros in escrow. Lilium is saying we're not going to put any money in escrow until we know exactly what we're buying. So it's a bit of a stalemate at the moment. It's very messy. And I think the reason this is particularly disheartening for a lot of people is that, 1,000 people were employed. Some of them left. Some of them went and worked for other air taxi startups. Archer opened an office in Munich and hired some of them. But a lot of them are still wondering where they're going to work and what they're going to do. And every potential rescue bid gives them new hope. And it's kind of sad to see it going back and forth and stalling again and again.
And so this potential bidder, AAMG is the name, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was poking around their website, and I don't know if I would trust them either if I was an insolvency administrator. It's like full of clip art and like weird, just like
homemade
text that looks like a 16-year-old made it. Does not scream that we've got hundreds of millions of dollars or euros to our name. So something's a little fishy in Munich, I suppose.
Bit fishy. Lots of unanswered questions. I wish I could answer more of them myself. We're just trying to keep up with the coverage really, and it's very hard to find out who's telling the truth here. And I guess all these acquisition deals are messy, but it's even messier when there's this whole legacy reputation attached to it, and it becomes a whole national discussion as well in Germany.
So that one's, perhaps a sinking ship to mix our metaphors here. But I think stateside, there's some encouraging news for the kind of eVTOL space, no?
Yeah, it's definitely not all doom and gloom in the eVTOL space. Unfortunately, I think the Europeans have a few challenges to contend with in the next few years. Yeah, on the American side, you've got the FAA, so the Federal Aviation Administration, is making some serious moves. They just launched this eVTOL pilot program, so the integration pilot program to be precise, which is a 3-year effort to integrate electric air taxis, self-flying planes, short takeoff and landing aircraft into real-world settings. And so it's backed by the White House. There's at least 5 projects expected to fly within 90 days from now. And you've got some big companies like Beta Technologies and Archer Aviation who have already expressed their interest to participate in this. And yeah, it's interesting to see in the States. I think ever since the new presidency and also the new head of the FAA, there has been a very marked push for American drone and eVTOL dominance. Before that, there was, I would say, a slightly more cautious approach from the government side. And now we're seeing moves like the FAA's recent Mosaic rule, which changed the category of light sport aircraft to incorporate certain eVTOL aircrafts as well. And then you've also on the drone side got a whole new set of policies around a beyond visual line of sight. So there's lots of technical terms there, I realize, but essentially we're just seeing a very strong push from the White House and from the FAA to increase the level of American drone dominance within the country and also to make regulation perhaps a little bit smoother and easier for emerging eVTOL companies and startups.
Yeah, I know on the drone side, the BVLOS rules are exciting for the wings and the Flytrexes and the zip lines of the world. Yeah, they think they can actually make some real headway with delivering light packages, meals, and stuff. So interesting to see how it plays out. But sounds like plenty for you to cover these days.
Plenty to cover.
All right, Athena, thanks so much. And I'm going to check in with Greg next.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Jonah.
Greg,
Jonah,
what are we doing here? What's going on?
I think the time has come for me to at least temporarily bid adieu to the podcast. Fall travel approaches, crazy busy schedule. I will see you at Michigan Mobility Week. We'll both be there working on our respective things. And then it's just like 3 months of travel, culminating with me hosting the inaugural Commotion Global in Riyadh. So back where I started, back with the Commotion guys.
I'm verklempt, and that's something you never want to be as a podcast blammering mouth. But yes, it's a very busy fall travel calendar for mobility events. We got Detroit, we got the Urban Autonomy Summit in New York, we got some LA Tech Week happy hours. So listeners, click those links, obviously. But Greg, I hope we can win you back. I hope we can find some way in between connecting flights to
it's
Gab.
Not forever. You know, you and Allah willing, I'll be back hopefully in the new year and we'll continue our merrily way along here. But in the meantime, we got some news to fill here. What's the latest? Let's do this.
Inshallah. Yeah. Straight to the highest temple of IPOs. Via going public. Is this are we back?
Well, I don't know. Are we back? It strikes me this is something we don't do anymore. It's very funny you put it the highest of IPOs, like, right? Like IPOs are like what, like, you know, the non-superstar companies do. Well, yeah, exactly. Why IPO when if you're Sam Altman, can get a $500 billion valuation from private funds? But that aside, it is interesting. We recently put together a little gab fest poking through the S1 because the business reporter in me just loves IPO prospectus when they finally tell you all the quiet parts out loud. I think my favorite was Uber finally admitting that they compete with public transport after years of their public policy officials lying to me about it. But when it comes to Via, I mean, Via is interesting in this regard because Via is like, what if Uber had played by the rules and built software for public transit agencies? And so reading through the S1, things that stood out to me was, I don't know if this was the story they always told, but that, that consumer-facing service they launched with, to them was always like a proof of concept, and they pivoted out of it as fast as they could to sell to transit agencies, of which they have 1%, Jonah, of the total addressable market of like 65,000 transit agencies, I think. But the other thing that stuck out, obviously, is the fact that they are continuing to lose money. The losses are narrowing, but, our overall takeaway is like, yeah, IPO is the thing you do when you can't get the world's biggest VCs to write you blank checks forever. Finally get one final runway, hopefully, here from the public markets, and then close their losses and just be a quietly profitable company. But there you go. I mean, the real takeaway is like, if you play by the rules in your Via, you'll get a small IPO, and if you break all the rules, you get to be Uber. and you get to have their market cap.
I
I don't know.
mean,
What was your take?
getting into the numbers for a second. So last year they lost 83 million off 337 million in revenue, which was narrower than the year before. And so trending in the right direction. But yeah, their first half this year still lost 33 million bucks. So they're gonna need to raise some cash to finance that burn for a bit longer.
They are. It also jumped out at me. They bought Citymapper for $74 million, which I don't think has been reported previously. That seems a little high for Citymapper, but I leave that to them there.
Yeah, I think the real question is like, what's it going to do when it opens, right? Like, what are they going to ask for? What's it going to pop or not pop to? They last raised in 2023? It's what was like how many billion? 1.3 billion or something. So it's there's money to be made here, but
there is, but it's the tough, slow money. It's like the non-sexy money to VCs. Reading through it, just combing through all the risk factors, and the discussion of it is like, if you're Uber and you just basically, ignore or break every available law, until you rewrite them with your policy teams, you can do this. You can cleave like a glacier through the landscape. Via, in reading it, is like, they talked about every locale they operate in, different laws and different things. And they're obviously trying to write some sort of like middleware platform for digital public transit. And then you have to basically adopt and adapt to all of that. So it's harder, it's costlier, it's slower.
Yeah. And I should correct myself. It was 3.5 billion for the last fundraise. One thing that also stood out to me is the number of customers they have is sort of trailed off. It was 665 end of last year. Now it's crept up to 689 in the midpoint of this year. So yeah, basically no growth. But the revenue per customer is going up. So they're managing to milk more out of each customer, which hopefully means that they're happy, not just that they're stuck. But I think to me, the big fundamental question is microtransit good, right? Is it a thing we want cities to operate? And it's sort of, I guess they could say it depends, right? If it's taking people off a high-performing bus route, not good. If it's taking them out of a single passenger car, maybe good.
Well, it's also not purely it's not purely microtransit. I mean, they're redesigning the bus routes for New York City. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here in terms of applying math to solve the traveling salesman problem on behalf of a lot of uses here. But that gets back to like, is this and this is what our discussion was about. With a couple of folks in sort of the urban tech field, which is like, is this the best case outcome for urban tech, where you're building a small profitable software business catering to government, and how much of that is left in now the era of Doge giving way to, Joe Gebbia of Airbnb as the new national design officer? Like, is there still a market for civic tech vendors? Maybe less than we thought.
You got to grease the right wheels, perhaps. Well, we wish them the best of luck, and obviously we will check in once they finally go public and we can see which way the chart go.
Let's see how that pops. Can they get a better deal than a SPAC? We'll find out very shortly.
But there's more money to discuss, of course. So I think the big fundraise of this last couple of weeks, Neuro hauling in $203 million. AV obviously having another hot streak. Money from NVIDIA, money from Uber, and a lot of big players pump them in. And it's interesting. Their sort of pivot to being a software player seems like it's working, because people might remember originally they were trying to do full stack, little on-road delivery bot.
Totally. And we'll get back to those, because those are having a moment there. There's a couple other players we'll mention in a second here. But it is interesting, because when Neuro did that pivot, I assume like, like you've run out of cash and now you're just going to like cleave it all away and extend that infinite runway. But yeah, that Uber Lucid tie up there, where they are in fact apparently going to provide that AV software stack to Uber as the interface and Lucid as the vehicle type. Maybe there's a there. Maybe Neuro will find even more traction and get into it. But yeah, $203 million will obviously help them penetrate that market as all the players there figure out their niches here, with Uber striking deals with everyone, as we've covered in the past. But the opposite of them in that regard then is Robomart, which has unveiled a new concept vehicle, which to me looks like a battering ram. I mean, I looked at that thing thinking about how I'd hack that and what I'd use it for.
Your pizza's here, be careful.
Yes, as it slams through your door here with all the other pizzas flying out of the shelves. But that's an interesting case where like all they are seem to be is hardware prototypes. What's your thoughts on the latest Robomart iteration?
They've done
a great
job.
A food stall, and now it looks like a tank.
Yeah, so they started as basically like a convenience store that you could hail, and it was going to be autonomous, but they were just piloting it with a poor fleshy human driver in it. Yeah, this one, I'm impressed with their ability to keep getting big headlines and keep, building things. It seems like it's more than just a render, but there must be at least one vehicle out there on a small budget, and then TBD if it ever goes anywhere, if it's just on to the next kind of funny idea. I know the guys, nice team, like, they're dreaming big, and I'm impressed that they made such a scary looking robot. But
you're also being very modest here, because one of the news items this week, didn't you matchmake this happen here? Well, I think Herbivore is bringing companies together. Which two were they?
I think, yeah, they who's to say for certain? But yes, people might remember that on stage back in April, we had co-founders from both Serve Robotics and Vayu Robotics, both doing delivery bots on stage together. And they just announced that Serve's buying Vayu. They're trying to take like their sort of, perhaps better autonomy tech stack in-house, applied to Serve's already deployed hardware, and they have the existing relationships with the 3PDs and the merchants. And so, and they're also getting Khosla on the board for that. It's a little bit of tech royalty. So we were there at the beginning. Pat on our back. Hey,
there you go. Curb where it's where everyone's at. And then what else we got? We got more autonomy news as well too.
Yeah,
what do we got? More bots, more trucks.
Lots of bots.
What's the other bots?
So also hot to me, Pinkbot expanding back to Toronto, which is where they originally started and then got kicked out of. So a little homecoming. And then Bot Auto doing AV trucking in Texas, which is of course another hotspot for this stuff. So watch out for that 18-wheeler. There's no one on board.
Well, there you go. Bot Auto back on the Texas Triangle. It's like really truly ground zero here for all the autonomous trucking. But then back in autonomous on Robocar land, it's interesting. Two items jump out. One, the mainstream press is noticing like, wait a minute, AV hype is back because of course Waymo beginning to scale, having proved it out. Now we're seeing this rush of people getting back into the space, starting with General Motors. Having fired the entire Cruise team, they are evidently trying to hire back most of the Cruise team.
So sorry.
Yeah, Mary. I don't know what she was thinking there, but that's interesting. Then the one that jumps out at me.
I think the bad PR blew over because we're in a post bad PR era now.
However, they're making those numbers pencil out there about the potential add to the market cap. But the one that really jumped out at me is like finally somebody in theory is offering the opportunity to buy your own robocar, and that is no company you've ever heard of. It is apparently a startup called Tensor. They've got images, they've got some video out there, but folks did some digging, and Tensor's trademarks appear to be linked to AutoX, which was a Chinese AV company. Yeah. It appears it's all on board here because when they dug into it, Tensor, acknowledged like we were called AutoX, we divested from China, we're now rebranded as Tensor. But I don't know, Jonah. I mean, your thoughts on this?
Who's actually making the car? Where you gotta. It's hard to hide that part, right? Somewhere there's got to be someone bending metal.
That's true, and that's probably happening in the Pearl River Delta. Let's not kid ourselves.
It's I mean, I hate when we start describing things that we're looking at, but it's interesting looking. It's a very streamlined car. It's got the little autonomy hat, but the rest of it
definitely bristling with sensors.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the electric Hyundai that sort of looks like a
the
Scaraby Porsche. Yeah, the 6.
Yeah, exactly. Love the 6.
So best of luck, Tensor. I don't know about the name, but
it's we'll see if they get to market. I'm curious to see. There was no MSRP with their announcement of this one too, so that's the big question. Is like, how much will it cost me to own that? And of course, will people buy it? As we've discussed in the past, is like that's gonna be my daily driver, or is this going to be an earnings asset that I will lease out to someone's platform here to go drive around? Like, we'll see if that business model.
Yep. Well, speaking of autonomy or semi-autonomy, one from the heavens. Honestly, kudos to the marketing team. Zipotle, it just rolls off the tongue.
Also, Jonah, you do not, in fact, need a two-ton car for your 2-pound burrito because Zipline is here to deliver your Zipotle burrito.
You just need to fight gravity.
Which is tougher. But yeah, the latest tie-up here with Zipline, who, God bless them, for our purposes, seems to be the ones doing the most announcements and the most interesting stuff. They just did a whole episode with Ashley Vance, the journalist here, showing off their various sort of drone areas they're building. Is Ashley Vance?
I'd say booster,
Jonah.
But
we'll
talk after the show.
Always has been, Jonah. I just talked to someone who's known him for 30 years, and that's how they described him as well. But I think that was interesting here. I'll be curious, just to see exactly how this comes to fruition. But God bless the launch videos, and God bless their furniture, and I don't know. Wish you luck.
And just getting into the details, it's of course in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex because that's where so many of these flying fast food things come out. You order it through the Zipline app, not through the Chipotle app, which I thought was interesting. And then, the part that kind of stuck with me is I feel like, and I'm not a big Chipotle guy, but part of it is that you go and you kind of make eye contact with the person making your burrito, and you sort of like stare at them till they put like a little bit more rice in there, and then you end up with like a 3-pound burrito, and it's like, well, that's a good deal. I got this much rice for $12. But when it's flying, one, no eye contact in the app, and two, there's got to be some weight limits. So these are going to be skimpy portions, and I know Chipotle just got over their skimpy portion scandal.
But on the flip side, Joe, we have entire memes about the sad Chipotle boys, like sitting there in their fleece vests on Market Street or in downtown Manhattan eating their slop bowls. Like, this saves you from being seen ordering a slop bowl. Have it delivered to you, not at your finance office down the hall from George W. Bush's private office in Parkland, but flown across the Metroplex to you, or you could just eat it at home in your day trading nook. I like it.
Evocative. Yeah, I'm in. On the
and we saved the worst news for last. Yeah, let's hear it. Let's go. I know, it's all fun and games and technological enablement, and then hey, let's gut the core of our transit services. So who's first up on the chopping block, Jonah?
First to the guillotine. Philadelphia going through 20% transit cuts with more looming. Pennsylvania, the state that it resides in, has not been able to basically come up with a funding stream for it. They used to have a dedicated funding stream, and then basically it got axed, and now Republicans have been sort of operating in bad faith, asking for other concessions to just
I was going to say, this is like saying like
the workhorse of the state.
This is like saying the baby wasn't able to come up for air when you're smothering it with a pillow, like the Republican state legislature is doing. Yes.
Yep. So, who gets hurt? Just poor working people, but at least they can stick it to the libs, right?
And we'll see who's next. This is about to play out in Chicago, among other places as well. We see similar deadlock on public transit. And it's, I don't think it's a coincidence personally that this is happening at a time where the president is threatening to send in the National Guard into various cities. So step one, annihilate your public transit. And step two, send in the National Guard to deal with your crime problem, whether it exists or it doesn't. Very fair to say that we live in a time where the war on cities is escalating, one might say.
Yep. And even if people are then forced to take a car, turns out we can't even build highways no more. Gosh darn it. So interesting new data out of Eno Center, basically looking at highway construction costs have also exploded in the last couple of years. So anyone that's listened to Greg and I complained for a while, Americans can't build public transit of the train variety, but now we can't really build the highways anymore. So just basically, I mean, it's a chart you got to see. We'll put it in the newsletter, but because of the cost explosion so much, even though the ILJA basically was like record nominal funding, the amount of actual stuff we get per dollar went down. So state capacity rules everything around me. Scream.
There you go. I look forward to Eric Goldwyn and Alan Levy at NYU Marin, who've written so much about, how we could cut transit building costs or high-speed rail costs. I guess they'll have to move on to highways. I know the broader context there's the new book Breakneck about China, and I think there's a quote in it. I've only read the reviews. Don't yell at me. Where where a Chinese official proudly describes himself as developing. Like, why wouldn't we want to be developing still? And America is, I've seen it described as post-developed. Yeah. We're not developing anymore. We're not developed. We're
stripping the parts. Yeah.
Ripping the copper out of the walls of America. You've heard it here first.
Last time, speaking of ripped copper and beyond its serviceable life. Anyone in New York seen an odd Fisker Ocean on the road lately?
Oh, right. This is such a fun story. Only New York kids, only in New York. So I forget how many it was, Jonah, like about a fleet of Fisker Oceans, the orphaned, electric SUV has been bought up on the cheap, pennies on the dollar, and now pressed into service as part of New York City's whole initiative here to green ride hailing. I mean, Jonah, what is the over-under on the service life of these cars going to be, whether we put it in mileage terms or just like chronological time before some software update breaks? Like, I don't know.
Well, they've taken over the software development themselves too. So American Lease, which is one of the big, basically like fleet operators, they basically buy them and lease them to cabbies. And I think it seems like their model is basically like they're accounting for that, and they're just going to keep scrapping them until like, sort of Ship of Theseus style, where there's like one mutant ocean left made of 1,000 other cars' parts. Yeah, I don't, I actually saw a Fisker Ocean just in the wild here in LA recently, just, in a parking lot, seemingly owned by a civilian. And I thought, it's like a handsome, small, mid-sized SUV. So I think it could work well, objectively as a car for, moving people from JFK to the city. But will it turn on when you need it to?
Say, as the name implies, design was never the problem. Fiskers were always beautiful after its namesake. But
Henrik.
It was just everything else about the business model and development of those cars, not actually bringing anything in-house is what led to those problems. Taking it even more out of house. I mean, God bless. So I look forward to people being locked inside or radios jammed on or whatever software glitches play out there.
Everyone comes with a little, brick you can use to bust the window open in an emergency.
There you go. That's very New York. Only in New York, kids.
Only in New York, baby. Well, I think that's enough cheery news. Greg, so long, farewell, or maybe just see you soon.
I'll show myself out. I got a plane to catch, but I'll see you in the new year. I trust.
And we're back. We're joined today by my friend Mike Pergadov, co-founder of Wiz. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Jonah.
It's so fun to catch up. It's been a while, and I know you guys have been just kicking butt lately. But for listeners that aren't that familiar with Wiz, why don't you just give us a little elevator pitch? What's Wiz?
Well, so Wiz is a pretty simple idea. What we are doing, we are renting out electric bikes that are specially designed and built for the delivery work. And we are renting them out to delivery workers who work on DoorDash, on Uber Eats, on Instacart, on Grubhub, and so on. And on top of the bike itself, we provide a lot of services like maintenance, repairs, insurance, battery swapping, accessories, and a lot of stuff to make it convenient for delivery drivers to use it. So that's basically an electric bike as a service for delivery drivers.
EBAS, electric bikes as a service. I like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, to your point, sounds like a simple idea, but obviously a lot of moving parts. Hardware is always more complicated than software. Let's talk a little bit like, what was your background as an entrepreneur? How did you get here? Obviously, it's not your first rodeo.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, it's indeed literally a lot of moving parts, and I agree that this is the most complicated part of the business. So I'll give you just a couple of numbers. We now operate around 5,000 electric bikes, and 4,500 of that in active rent, and we are doing thousands, like more than 3,000 repairs per month, like small and large, but still repairs. That means that we have thousands of bikes, thousands of batteries, and tens of thousands of spare parts that are constantly moving in between our locations, and there are 9 of them right now in different cities and states, and our thousands of our customers back and forth. And to manage all these, like you said, moving parts, it's not an easy job indeed. Fortunately, and getting back to your question, when we started this business, we already realized that it will be like that, because first of all, there are 4 co-founders. It's not only me. There is a team of 4 co-founders, and before launching Wiz, we built 2 companies in a similar space, in a delivery space, and all of us worked with subscriptions on hardware devices or some physical products. And so this is not our first business, and this is not our first business when we are dealing with moving parts, so that helped a lot. Yeah.
And what obviously experience is valuable, but why did you decide this is the problem you wanted to solve? It's a pain in the butt. Thousands of moving parts. Got to keep all these workers and maintenance people and warehouses. Why not solve something easier?
That's a good question. I'm actually asking myself, like, literally every Monday, I would say.
Yeah, why couldn't I have just done an app?
Yeah, that's a great question. But look, I mean, first of all, me and my co-founders, all of us are immigrants, and we came to New York like around 3.5 to 4 years ago. And when we came here, especially here in New York after COVID, food delivery was exploding and e-bikes were exploding. But we also realized
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, also literally. When we saw this, we realized that it's a huge market, it's growing, so product market fit and demand is definitely there for a good product, but also it's a complete mess happening in New York in the market. So New York was definitely not ready for that explosion of the number of e-bikes, especially in a commercial space. So I think it was around maybe 70,000, like 3 years ago, it was around 70,000 e-bikes only in the delivery space in New York. And nobody understood here, like, how should we deal with that now? Because like literally tens of thousands of them. And it happened that my co-founders actually, so they moved from Russia as well as I, but we never met each other until we got to New York somehow. And before moving here, they built and sold exactly the same company there. And so they had an experience. And when we met, they said like, hey, this market is just way bigger. We already have an experience. We understand how to do that. Let's do it together. So that's so it was pretty straightforward. We had a similar experience. We realized that the opportunity is there, and I think we were very lucky on timing, meaning that at that point the market was already big, but it was not matured, it was not regulated, and there was no strong competition. So I think we were lucky to be in the right place in the right time.
Yeah, there were already couriers with sort of substandard e-bike solutions, the infamous Arrow. So I think obviously an appetite for a better product.
Exactly.
That makes me think, like, how do you get something like this off the ground? There's so many elements. There's sourcing the hardware, there's finding your distribution points, there's finding the customers, there's working with the 3PDs. Like, where do you even start?
Well, honestly, to launch the business, from the date we decided to launch it to the first sale, it took us maybe 2.5 months, something like that. So it was extremely fast. We rented a space in West Village in Manhattan. We still get it. It's super expensive, but we are still there. It's one of our
Yeah, very chic.
locations. Yeah, for some reason we decided to choose West Village. No, maybe because we didn't know Manhattan well. But anyway, we got the space. Then we got first, I guess, 100 e-bikes and just started renting them out, advertising it on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and then renting them out. And it went well, actually. But also, we started this fast, but also as a long-term vision, we realized very well that it is very important to invest in software, and it's in our own software, in our own hardware, because we already knew that to manage all this, like you said, tens of thousands of moving parts will be pretty complicated task. We raised some money, and then we hired developers, and we started building our own software that is now called Wiz ERP, that manages all the internal and external work, including the bikes themselves. All the bikes are obviously remotely controlled, but also anything in the company like maintenance, repairs, collection, repossession, CRM system, payments, everything. We now have everything in-house, and I think that is the very important thing. So I think long-term, it was very important to understand that investing in software is a good idea. And then after 1 year, I think we realized that investing in hardware is even more important. And that's where we decided to switch to building our own e-bike.
So it's a custom bike?
Yeah, it's a custom bike. We have R&D engineers like in-house in the team who are building both bike and IoT device, that is, connectivity device. And we do it in-house, and we are now actually going to release the third generation of our bikes this autumn. And honestly, the main learning I had through this 3.5 years of this journey is that there is no anything more important than the bike itself. I mean, it sounds pretty obvious. It was not to us at that point. We were thinking maybe it's marketing that is most important, or software, or contracts with platforms, or relationships with city, or something else.
But
in the
you
end
need a
of the day,
reliable bike that people want to ride.
yeah, in the end of the day, it's the bike, its quality, its durability, its affordability, its compliance. That's the most important thing. And that's why
Maybe
we are
I'll
building
take one
our
for
own
a
thing.
test drive next time in New York. But you touched on something I'm always curious about. You said money, the magic money word. I'm
Yeah.
curious, from a fundraising perspective. Obviously, you're working with electric bikes, and I feel like a lot of investors were sort of burned by the micromobility industry last few years. Do they see you as micromobility and they run away, or do they realize this is a different market?
Yeah. Well, I would say 90% of them immediately ran away. That
The
happens
smart
all the
money.
time. Yeah, but what really helped us that we had some reputation by our side, meaning we built two pretty successful companies before that. Though it was not in States, it was still a great success story. So we had some reputation, and I think that helped us. And also we had very ambitious plans. We didn't pitch like we will manage, I don't know, 5,000 of bikes. We always pitched like, hey, we will be the largest fleet operator of e-bikes in the United States. We will manage hundreds of thousands of devices, maybe not only e-bikes. We will solve last mile delivery problem in the US. We were trying to be pretty ambitious in our vision. So combine these two things, like reputation and us being second time founders, and also our ambition, helped us raise first money. And after that, the business started, fortunately for us, the business started growing immediately. Like literally every month we added more bikes to the fleet and more revenue, in the P&L. And since that, I think this traction helped us raise like next rounds and next rounds.
You got the numbers to back up the talk. And so, as you said, you started in New York City, which has sort of been a hot point for e-bikes. You've got the battery fires, you've got citizen complaints about couriers going backwards down a sidewalk 100 miles per hour. Has that been a catalyst, or has that been a hindrance? Like, I can see it making people want a better solution, but can also see them just turning them off of e-bikes totally. How have you navigated that?
Okay, cool.
So you founded Wiz in New York City, which has been really a sort of hot flashpoint for e-bikes. You've got the stories of the tragic battery fires. You've got couriers zooming down the sidewalks against traffic, making people really upset. I could see this being either a headwind or a tailwind. On one hand, it's making people want a more sustainable solution. On the other hand, it might just have people mad at e-bikes in general. How do you navigate that tension?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Indeed, when we started it, like I said, there were maybe like around 70,000 electric bikes in New York, and most of them were very low quality and pretty dangerous. There was no any regulation that was regulating this space. That's why the city was completely flooded with low quality e-bikes with low quality lithium batteries. And that led to hundreds of battery fires, hundreds of people injured or even died from that. And that also led to probably thousands or maybe tens of thousands of accidents on the roads. So yeah, the situation was pretty complicated. I think we had a vision, and yeah, there were pros and cons in this model for us, because we are renting our devices directly to delivery workers. And honestly speaking, they mostly care not about the speed limit or the compliance of the battery. They care about the bike itself, if it helps them to earn more money or not. So that's what they care about, which is pretty natural, and I can definitely relate to that. So for delivery workers, we had to build the best bike for them, which means durable, large battery, can go fast, nothing breaks in it, and so on. And also anti-theft protected. I think these are the main features. But also, as we obviously always wanted to be compliant, we had to work with the city a lot on the regulation side. And that's why we put a lot of effort, like an enormous amount of effort in the quality of battery. And I'm very proud to say that in 3.5 years, we had 0 fires and 0 issues with our batteries. We never had anything. And I think that is something I'm really proud of. And also all the other compliance things, like about our bikes, about our stores, locations, warehouses, everything. And that actually was not easy, because while we were fully compliant, there were hundreds of bike shops or small sellers that were not compliant in the similar space, and we had to compete against them in terms of pricing, while it was pretty hard staying compliant. So fortunately, city understood the problem, and in the next years, like in the last couple of years, some regulations appeared, and some of them are being successfully enforced, and that helps us a lot. So there are pros and cons in it. It's hard to compete against the gray part of the market.
Yeah.
But I think also regulation helps us and the city in general to make it better.
So in that sense, yeah, the city, once they realized that you guys were trying to be reputable operators, that they've sort of been supportive, and also by kind of cleaning up some of the bad actors, it's pushed more people onto your platform.
Yeah, probably. But I think, honestly, it's the best product that really pushed people to our platforms, first of all. Just the best bike.
No. And so after operating in New York for a couple of cities, for a couple of years, what came next? Where did you expand to after New York?
Yeah, we were pretty happy in New York, and we were growing fast, and we had a lot of work to do. But maybe a year ago, we thought like maybe we have to try something new, because it was always unclear, like, will this model work outside of New York? New York is a very special city. There is no city like New York in North America. And we were always curious. And by the way, our investors were always curious, like, hey guys, okay, New York is great, but it's just one city. Can you replicate it in other places? So that's why a year ago in September 2024, we launched operations in Philadelphia. It went pretty successful. In 6 months, the city became profitable, and that was a fleet grew up to 400 vehicles there, and that was and at that point it became profitable and generating some profits on a city level. So for us, it was a very strong sign of success. We didn't expect to be there that fast, like in 6 months. And after that, in the beginning of this year of 2025, we decided to launch Chicago and Washington DC, and it was the same pace, the same success there so far. And just a month ago, we launched West Coast. Finally, San Francisco, and we are operating there for the first 4 weeks, and our bikes are already there. So yeah, we are now pretty sure and by the way, these cities are now generating 30% of our revenue. So in less than a year, all these cities started generating 30% of our revenue. That's amazing. We didn't expect that, actually. And we have a lot of plans to expand further in American cities, but also we are thinking about new countries. Yeah, so expansion is a big thing.
Yeah, I could see this working well in Canadian cities. I could see this working in Mexico City, another big dense metropolis. So it's fertile territory for you.
Almost any dense city in the world, delivery is made by two wheels. And most of the time it's electric bikes. Sometimes it's mopeds, either gasoline or electric again. Sometimes in Latin America, it's motorbikes though. And in Africa, it's motorbikes. But in most of American and European cities and some other regions, it's usually electric bikes. Yeah. So it's pretty similar in all around the world.
Yeah. The two wheels are just efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
As you've expanded from New York to these new cities, it's amazing to see how quickly it's taken off. But are there any interesting learnings, things that, we do this in New York, we do this in San Francisco, or this works better in Chicago than it does in Philadelphia?
Well, cities Philadelphia honestly is just the mini copy of New York in terms of our operations, I would say. Yeah, I mean,
sorry, Ben Franklin.
Just in terms of our operations, I mean. But other cities are a little bit different. Chicago, well, in Chicago, winters are pretty cold, so we have to think about it. In Washington, D.C., the situation is pretty interesting. Most of delivery drivers who work in downtown, they basically live in other towns and cities around, so they have to commute to make a long trip to commute. That's why most of them preferred gasoline mopeds over e-bikes. And in San Francisco is very hilly. So if we get our just regular e-bikes that we use in New York, it will not work well in San Francisco.
A bigger motor or something?
Yeah, so actually we built another model of Whiz bikes. We called it, I'm not sure I like this name, but for some reason we called it Whiz Monster. And we will probably rename it.
Yeah, don't tell the regulators that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's it's a fully compliant bike though, and it has a great battery. In terms of power of the motor, limited by regulations. So anyway, we built this bike which works better on hilly roads and has bigger battery, still absolutely 100% compliant. And I think that our growth in Washington, D.C. and in San Francisco is because of that. And I think that is, by the way, another secret sauce we have in the company. We know how to build hardware pretty quickly. Sometimes it's not perfect, being honest, but for us, it's the time to market is the most important metric here.
What's it been like working with the platforms themselves, the DoorDashes, the Ubers, the Grubhubs? Are they easy to work with? Are they supportive? Are they, who cares? Like, what's their reaction been?
Well, I would say that they're different, and I will not say who's better.
Yeah, of course. We love them all.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, these are huge corporations. We are a small startup, so it's two different worlds. And we are trying to be fast. And for us, it's pretty easy to be fast on our decision making. I can jump on a call and make a decision right on the call, right, as a founder. Well, founder of DoorDash or Uber would not probably jump on a call with us, right? So it makes them way longer time to make a decision. But I think that, well, first of all, we are an official partner of DoorDash and Grubhub, and we just signed a contract with Relay, and we are working on contracts with a couple of other big names in the industry. Congrats. So we were pretty successful. It was not easy; it took time, and I think if you're trying to make an enterprise deal with large corporations, it takes time. That's what I learned. I mean, even to sign a contract which is fully approved can take 3 months just to put a signature there. So that was something I didn't know. That's what I learned. But in the end of the day, it just takes time. But if you find right people there that are interested, that have some aligned goals with you, then it starts working. And I think our partnership with DoorDash is a great example. I think we built an exceptional partnership with them. It's pretty unique. As far as I know, nobody does things like that in the US except us and DoorDash. And the idea of that is that DoorDash actually subsidizes first couple of months of rent for their drivers on Wiz. And I think that's amazing, because for most of the drivers, most of them are immigrants, and to pay even $200 per bike per month, sometimes it's pretty expensive. So, but if DoorDash subsidizes it, they can do it like for $20 per month or something. And that helps them just to hop on a platform, start delivering orders, start making money, and take it from there. So that was a great initiative. We started it in Chicago in the beginning of this year as a pilot project. It went extremely well, and like maybe a couple of weeks ago, DoorDash reached out to us and said they want to expand this program. They want to double the subsidies, and they want to expand this program across all American cities except New York. So starting August, DoorDash is subsidizing first couple of months of rent in all our cities, in Chicago, in DC, in San Francisco, and everywhere else, in Philadelphia. Yeah, I think that's
And
a
to
great
your
partnership.
point, you're helping delivery workers out who are often low income, often immigrants, have a not so glamorous job. Is that, would you say, a big motivator for you for why you wake up and solve these problems? In the sense, like, these are people that need a better solution. Is there sort of like a sense of
Yeah.
I'm doing my part there?
Well, first of all, I'm an immigrant also, and my story was a little bit different. Probably, I think I came here in a more like comfortable way, but still, I could feel all this, challenges you can face when you move to any new country, including United States. It's bureaucracy, it's documents, it's just understanding how anything works. It's just and of course get a first job, which I never had here because I created it for
You
myself. But
made your own job.
yeah, had to make it because it's not easy. It's not easy to find a job, I think, especially, by the way, for people who don't speak English well. And most of our customers, they don't speak English well. And our customer support works in 6 languages, including French and Spanish, that are most popular. English is just the third one. So for these people, I think we just felt very well their struggles, their challenges, and that helped us to build a good product for them. And speaking of motivation, look, I mean, I know so many stories about them now. It's only in New York, there are 100,000 people in a delivery space. It's like a city in a city,
Sure.
right? And nobody actually think about these people. There are no products for them, no services for them, nothing. Like they are almost kind of existing like in the shadows or something. And I think that just building a good product for them and thinking about their needs and getting some gratitude from them is just it's really motivating, because it's just when you provide a good service, like, hey guys, we want to help, let us know what we can improve, just working with people just like as regular customers basically, but for them it's not regular, right? It's something exceptional, and seeing that and also hearing their stories, and we hear a lot of stories like people overcame some difficulties in lives, and some of them are making actually great success, earning pretty a lot of money, and for them and for their families. And I even, honestly, I have an idea to make even a film, a documentary or something about this space, because I feel like maybe just not as a Wiz project, maybe as a personal project, but
Sure.
it's
A
just I
human
know
interest
so many.
project. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, because I know so many stories, and many of them are some of them are pretty sad, but also many of them are very inspiring. And I think that definitely motivates us.
I could totally see that. So, final question for you, Mike. Big picture, pull a lens back. Where do you see, the future of delivery going? Where do you see Wiz fitting into that kind of larger picture? What's the next couple of years look like?
Well, the next couple of years are pretty straightforward. We have our model that works, and we just want to grow it and to expand it. We want to expand to a couple of more countries. We want to expand in our geographies here. I think New York will be completely revolutionized by some new regulations here, and we are preparing for that. And I think it will all be for good. We just need to do it right. So next couple of years, I think, are pretty straightforward. We just want to grow our fleet and do a better product, and that's it. If you ask me about next 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, I think that's a very interesting question about last mile delivery. And I think that if I think about Wiz in 10 years from now, I think we will not be operating only e-bikes. It will be other vehicles as well. And I think that a huge part of that will be autonomous vehicles also, because there is no technology right now that could deliver food or something else or groceries or whatever in a good way, in a convenient way. But we all know how AI works and how it accelerates everything.
Sure.
So it's just a matter of, in my opinion, maybe 7 years or something. Again, depending on regulations and a lot of stuff, but still technology will be there. And we just see Wiz as, I think, potentially the largest fleet of last mile delivery vehicles. It can be bikes, it can be something else. We are working on it pretty actively. It's pretty early to talk about it, but when I go to sleep, I usually think about that.
Fleets of all types.
Yeah, something like that.
Cool. Something to look forward to. Well, Mike, thanks for stopping by. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.